Welcome to the HMO Property Show by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, as always, Neil Gibb, and today I've got Steve Yarwood from Let Go BNB Management. Steve, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. The whole idea of this podcast is to give people visual or more around what's out there that help them create wealth and also to create cash flow as well. And primarily, we've done a lot of focus on HMO and SDA so far, but there's a little hidden gem in the market that probably isn't as hidden, like a lot of people know about it, but whether people are taking advantage of it is another thing. So today we're going to talk about short-term rentals and more importantly, what you're doing in that space as well.
Great.
Sound
okay,
good?
Sounds good. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Sound good?
I mean, taken 50 episodes to get me on here, but it's all right.
So, mate, if we were to meet at a barbecue and someone asks you, what do you do?
Yeah.
What's your answer?
I'll offer help on the barbie as well. It depends what's cooking, but yeah, generally it's a bit of a tongue twister, but a short-term rental property manager, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
People sometimes ask what's that, but you know, when you say the word Airbnb, which is sort of an umbrella term, then they understand. So yeah.
Yeah. And do you advertise like on Airbnb? Are you separate from Airbnb? Do you use Airbnb properties?
Yeah. So we use Airbnb as a platform essentially to give us exposure on our listings. So our listings are usually listed on multiple platforms. We have our own direct booking engine as well, so guests will come and book direct, so that way we avoid our platform fees and commissions. So Airbnb is the main one. There's no denying that. They've got the main market share. Their system's brilliant.
It's a behemoth, isn't it?
And yeah, most guests are going to check that anyway, and they've got the advantage of their two-way review system, support the insurances as well, which they've built out over time. So that's definitely the main one. You've got Booking.com, you've got VRBO or Home Away or Stays. They're all sort of amalgamated now.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's Marriott. Google Vacation Rentals is a new one, so we've just launched our properties on that platform about a month or two ago.
Good. When did that come out? Google Vacations?
It's been around for a little while. It just hasn't had too much exposure, but it's actually, knowing Google, it's going to go ballistic, I think. So we're one of the early adopters for that, and our software is able to integrate with that, which is great. And yeah, essentially, if you just type in short-term rental or vacation rental Perth, it's going to actually come up like a booking engine. You can filter by dates and type and everything, price, and then it filters them to our direct booking engine, which is great, and zero commission too. So
awesome. And what's the main difference between like a standard rental and a short stay rental?
Yeah, there are some important distinctions, but by and large, the property wise, it's generally going to be the same. So there's no real requirement to retrofit the property. Now, the biggest barrier to entry for most people is just the furniture outlay to get nice modern matching themed furniture.
We had a little chat about this.
We did, yeah. So none of the bachelor pad or mismatched styles and colours and all that sort of stuff, unless you're doing the eccentric look like this wallpaper.
Do you have a sort of theme that you advise your clients to work to?
Generally, yeah. So we usually try to establish the location, obviously the target market, the demographic you're going for, the property size, and I guess other rentals that we research in the area. Also, obviously, the proximity to certain things like, say, the beach or Perth Arena or sports stadiums, that sort of stuff. So once we establish that, that's when we start looking at the theme. So we work closely with an interior designer that will come through and help with that phase as well. So that's the ideal scenario, is to have the interior designer go through and make sure it's done right. They know how we work now. But of course, sometimes owners want to, they want to have their hand held during that process and, feel like they've got some ownership, which is also fine, but as long as it's done tastefully, right? So in that case, we'd give them an onboarding and inventory checklist, and they would basically go and fit it out themselves, and based on the guidance we've given at the initial appraisal stage and then also the onboarding phase. So it's, we're pretty detailed at the front end so that it can be easy afterwards. So
you kind of give them a list saying like 8 knives and forks, 8 spoons, 8
correct,
plates,
yeah, all the
everything.
formulas to each crockery, cutlery, knives, forks, spoons, cups, bowls, everything, yeah.
So the short-term Airbnb, it's kind of fully kitted out so people can just turn up with a bag of clothes and a toothbrush.
Exactly.
Stay there for one night.
Yep.
What's the longest you can stay at these?
So generally most councils will define short-term accommodation as any stay under 3 months. It's mostly the case across the board. So generally say 90, 92 nights works out to. So it's generally the maximum, but and most people staying short stay, they're not going to want to pay short stay rates staying beyond 3 months. They're going to want to try to negotiate something, right? And, we can work with them on that, but that's generally the definition is up to 3 months.
Yeah, I like to say it's, when some people ask us like how we deck these out, I kind of say like our HMOs are decked out like an Airbnb, but long stay.
Yeah, sure.
Because we set them up very similar with everything, nice forks, cups, full shebang.
I've seen some of your fit outs look great. Yeah,
I'd love to take credit for them, mate, but it's not me, it's the team. Yeah. How big's the market for short stay? Like you say, Airbnb's a pretty big machine there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. It's like the second biggest startup after Uber now. I think it's like 100 billion market cap.
And it all started from someone sleeping on someone's sofa, didn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so there was a couple of guys in San Francisco that were falling behind on their rent, and there was a big conference in town, and they basically put an ad up on Craigslist, like the Gumtree equivalent here, and had a few people come and stay on their air mattresses, hence the word Airbnb, and then it just exploded from there. And yeah, now it is this big beast that it is today, and it's sort of the first go-to for most people's stays.
So with your platform that you've built as well, does it automatically go onto Airbnb, or does it pull information from Airbnb to yours?
Yeah, it's a two-way API synchronization, so it sends the data in real time, which is great. So you don't have the calendar issues and double ups and all that sort of fun stuff. So it's a property management system, or in the industry it's considered a channel management system. It's both. So it synchronizes all the calendars from all the platforms. The pricing can get synchronized and even scaled up or down depending on the platform and their fees as well. So
it's like real-time synchronization.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah,
perfect. So if you had one person on Airbnb and one person on your site, it's just whoever clicks the button first gets it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
We haven't, in 6 years now, we've never had the case of having a double booking that's caused by a calendar issue like that, yeah.
Brilliant. And what's the demand like out there for short stay? I know during COVID, when we were all kind of locked into this beautiful state, which is Western Australia, right? There's definitely worse places to be locked in, isn't there? But what was the demand like then, and what's the demand like now that flights have opened back up and people can leave the country? Yeah,
good question. It was a very common one, of course, we had since sort of 2020 when everything, shut down here and we had very tough borders. So our occupancy actually went up a lot. Obviously, at the beginning, we were very nervous because we had, a multi-calendar which showed all of our bookings in real time, and it was getting wiped. We had nothing. Which was a little concerning, but what we found shortly after was we started getting all these longer stays, like especially the 14-night stays, the quarantine length stays. So our occupancy actually went through the roof. We had to have a small adjustment on price, but overall, actually, a lot of our landlords were better off. We had a lot of longer stays, and it ticked over pretty well. But then having said that, that lasted a couple of years, and then March last year, as we know, almost 18 months ago, borders opened. We had 2 years of pent-up demand. Things went ballistic. Even last winter was crazy. Yeah. There's a bit of normality resuming now into the market. It's been sort of, 18 months. Everyone's had a chance to synchronize, their leave with work and their flights and accommodation now. So most people had a chance. And most of that demand's now been soaked up. However, the baseline demand is still very high. Currently booking in strategy sessions with our clients to sort of show the dynamic pricing modeling we've got with our certain software to show them what the rates are looking like for the next 6 months. Yeah, and even the last 6 months, the baseline's been pretty strong as well. Yeah, even during winter.
Interesting. And is it right that it's a kind of a seasonal strategy as well? Do you get smashed in the summer and then you got more vacancies in the winter?
Yeah, correct. So, we try to tell you you're generally going to be earning sort of 60, 70, even 80% of your income over the spring and summer months. So at the moment, we're sort of shoulder season, just coming out of winter. Looking forward, the next 3 months looking good, sort of shoulder season, spring. But, our dynamic pricing software will pick up things like seasonal events like the Surf Life Saving Championships in Scarborough. We've got Coldplay coming on the November 18th. Prices have probably tripled to quadrupled.
So it looks into certain calendars and automatically adjust the price.
Correct, yeah. It would be impossible for us to stay across that, of course. So obviously it does its AI algorithm thing in the background, but I've got to go in there regularly, which I'm doing, and just set the parameters basically. So one of the main metrics I'm looking at is forward booking pace. So essentially how far into the future are you booked out percentage wise, so usually a 730 and 90-day booking pace. So there's a certain sweet spot you want to get the best occupancy and the best nightly rate, because the inverse, whenever one goes up the other goes down, right? So you want to make sure you're not leaving any money on the table, and that's sort of the reason we come in is to, you know, have these competitive advantages over, you know, the average mum and dad hosts that are sort of learning as they go that aren't optimizing things.
And they're just on the one platform, you're spread across
Correct.
multiple.
Yeah.
And with the way that you price the nightly stays out there as well, where does it scrape that data from? Is it looking at different short stay platforms as well, or is it just kind of working it out?
Yeah, so we've got a few different subscriptions. Obviously through our dynamic pricing software, then there's AirDNA, which you can see some basic data for free. If you log in there, we've got obviously a full subscription with that, which gives us very high and low level data.
How accurate is it?
It's very accurate. It's real data, yeah. So you can actually see all of the actual competing listings in the area. You can see their track performance, what their nightly rates have been, what their occupancy's been. You can a direct link to the booking to the listing itself, so you can, you know, compare apples with apples as well. And it's one of the tools we use when we do an appraisal, so that we can show our clients as well, like, you know, because it's very volatile and people, you know, don't really have many case studies to go off, especially because it's most of our clients' first time using or even considering hosting on Airbnb, right? So we've got real data to compare to, and then we like to drill down further and say, well, to compare apples with apples, your property is better than, you know, 5 out of 7 of these comparison rentals, and we generally do get more than the estimated averages too, with our various advantages. So, but still want to be conservative, and we can put through the figures through like a feasibility calculator that we use to, you know, make sure we input all of the assumptions, because there's, you know, a few distinct extra expenses that you might cover. So gas, water, electricity, internet, the owner would cover, but, you know, it's more than offset by the extra income.
How do you manage the utilities for a client? Because, you know, when people aren't paying for air conditioning, they just turn it on and leave it on, don't they? Do you get any big bills coming through?
Yeah, it's a common question. Sometimes you do, but certainly for older properties that don't have the right insulation or drafts, or they don't have double glazed windows, and they're done to like old building standards, right? So it's something we mentioned at the appraisal stage too, that you should be potentially prepared for that. Obviously, we can put all the mitigation notices and rules in place, but whether people follow it is another thing. I mean, it does help, of course. There's, you know, smart devices and smart aircon controllers like Sensibo you can get, which can monitor the
I've got a washing machine now that's got AI on it.
Yeah.
Welcome to.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm assuming we might not need cleaners anymore, I guess, and they can just have robots do it. But yeah, essentially you can set the temperature, for example. That's probably the biggest drainer, is like the aircon. You know, put it between, say, you know, 20 to 25 type range instead of, you know, 16, 18 or, you know, 30. You know, it's still pretty comfortable for most people. Yeah,
we've got them on some of the new build properties that we're doing now. So it's like a placebo remote sort of thing, and you set the high and low temperatures so they can crank it up.
Yeah,
good little trick, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Do you have the sensors under the units as well? So if they'll go out the room, it turns the AC off?
Yeah, potentially. Oh, you mean like a hotel?
Yeah, like so in some of the rooms we've put like a infrared sensor underneath.
Oh, I
so
see.
if there's no movement in the room for like 2 or 3 hours and the
yeah,
unit's on.
We considered having those, but then I think when people are sometimes sleeping during the day and night, it's not going to go on and it's going to turn off. They're going to be getting up and down during the night. So yeah, it's a good point. And no, we don't technically have those ones, but yeah, those are the types of things that we suggest looking into. But you know, overall, when you average it out, it's, you know, we just make sure it's factored into the rate really, and you know, you don't, as a guest, you're trying to, you know,
so we lose some sort of thing.
Yeah, but you know, as a guest, you probably don't want to be pestered too much, because we probably made that mistake a bit early on, putting a lot of sterile notices in people's faces. Don't do this, don't do that. And now we just, I guess we're just educating owners that, you know, and everyone knows the same. Like when you go stay at a hotel or an Airbnb, right? You just want to be comfortable, right? Yeah. And you feel like you paid all that money, so. It comes around. Obviously, reviews is something we're sort of held hostage for a little bit as well. So you want to make sure that you're adhering to those, because that really helps the algorithms that work a bit like Google, that push up your search rank, of course, if you're getting good, you know, reviews and response rates and all that stuff.
Yeah, tricky beast, isn't it? It's like a lot of moving parts there by the sounds of things as well.
There's a lot, yeah. No set and forget.
And when you're kind of doing the feasibility for the client, like you said earlier, or the forecasting of what it could look like, what are you seeing in the difference of what it could rent for as a normal standard rental property compared to short stay? Is there a big uplift?
Yeah, generally there is, yes. There's like perfect prototype properties that you would take on that give you the best yield.
What are them ones? What are the perfect properties?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, from a yield perspective, generally apartments are going to be better off because you've got less wear and tear, less utilities. However, you sometimes can run into issues getting consent from the strata committee, the council of owners, because some councils you will need that. Now we have a pretty robust and comprehensive management plan and it addresses all the common concerns people could have. So we do have a pretty good success rate getting that, but it just poses an extra layer, I guess. But yeah, in terms of returns, lower purchase price, higher rates. You've got a bigger segment of the market, staying at 1 and 2 bedroom properties, so the occupancy is going to be generally quite high.
Yep.
Whereas you get a 3, 4, 5 bedroom place. Yes, your nightly rate's going to be a lot higher, and you can host bigger guests. But generally, you need to have it's a smaller segment of the market. And you're going to need to have potentially the grandparents, the parents, the kids all together to justify like a 6, 7 like bed place. Or sleeping spaces.
Very rare that you travel as a full unit, isn't it?
Yeah, unless you're like a big group of guys or girls going out to party, which is probably not our ideal guest type anyway. But yeah.
So if we had an apartment in the CBD, let's say we normally rent 2 bed, 2 bath. Normally rent for $550 a week in the good old days. Probably $650 a week now. What would you be able to rent it out for a short stay?
Yeah. So how many bedrooms, bathrooms? Sorry.
2 bed, 2 bath.
Yeah. So 2 by 2 in a decent blue chip suburb. $550 per week. Traditional, you would be getting 200 to 300 per night generally, depending on the spec, and that would be probably something like 75 to 85% occupancy.
Right. So the big uplift then.
Yeah, generally it's like minimum 50%. There's none of them that we've seen in our portfolio that have been under, and if it's looking like it's going to be nowhere near, then we don't bother taking it on, of course, because it's because of maintenance issues. But yeah, 50 to sometimes 200 or more % uplift.
Wow.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. What's the kind of cost to entry into one of these? Let's say somebody's already got a property, and let's say it's in pretty good condition, so they really just need furniture pack sort of putting in there. What's the general cost for them to get started?
Yeah, for just furniture then?
Yeah, let's say like again, let's stick with a 2 bed, 2 bath apartment.
Yeah, so yeah, furniture pack for that. You probably don't want to go with like entry level, like Kmart, like fantastic furniture stuff. You want to get something at least medium to high range. But 2 by 2, you're probably looking 25 entry level to 30, 40 potentially. But yeah, the payback period for that's very high, especially when you consider the uplift from traditional.
Yeah, you'd probably make your money back in 2 years, wouldn't you?
Yeah, within that usually.
Yeah.
Often a year, yeah.
And how long is short stay been in? How long has it been used for? Like how long have you had the business for?
Just going on 6 years now.
6 years,
yeah.
I know. And prior to that, was short stay a thing then? Like, how long was it in inception?
Yeah, it's been around for ages, right? But it's in its current format. It's definitely evolved a lot, right? You had like your traditional chalet and motel and
B&B thing.
Yeah, B&Bs and chalets, down south and that sort of stuff, which have been around for decades, right? But it's really what's transformed the industry is the rise of Airbnb and these other platforms where people have started putting up their houses and residential properties as well, right? So in that format, yeah, it's sort of been 2013 is sort of when that sort of started taking off, and
right, so about 10 years now.
Yeah. I think that's roughly around when Airbnb was taking off. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And how many properties have you got under management now in the 6 years you've been going?
Just ticked over 100 last month. So
Really?
yeah, nice milestone. It's just a number at the end of the day, but
Did you celebrate the milestone?
we did actually. We had amalgamated celebration with one of our staff members' birthdays, and it was nice to see that. But
Brilliant.
yeah.
And how big's the team to manage a portfolio of 100 Airbnbs?
Yeah, so we've we were just talking about that before. So we've got employee wise, we've got the office. We're in Stirling. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 of us, I think. Now including myself. Plus we've got assistants as well, so that help with guest messaging. There's a team of about 8 of those now. So then we've got about 20 to 30 subcontractors plus 3 or 4 casual cleaners. So yeah, it's getting up. We're probably around 40 to 50, I guess, full-time equivalent staff. It's a lot of moving parts. Yeah. So
how are you going with cleaners? Have you still got the same crew that you started with, or are you having the same problem as us?
A lot of them are, yes. We have gone through some changes. Of course, during COVID, it became pretty challenging. You weren't getting the transient backpacker student like visas coming through, right? So it was a lot of locals only. I think a lot of hospitality industry were really slammed during that couple of year period. It's definitely come back a lot. So we've put out an ad a month or 2 ago, and we got probably 450 applications for cleaners, so it's definitely improved a lot. We've got a few companies, a few sole traders, and a few casual employees, so a good mixture now.
Yeah.
But you know, we have a very systemized way of doing it, so it works pretty well. But yeah, gotten a lot easier now.
Yeah.
But the prices have certainly gone up a lot. When we first started, it's much cheaper to get cleaners. Now it's
Tell me about it. Yeah, almost doubled in price, I think.
yeah,
hasn't it?
easy.
Yeah.
Even down south, it's probably double that as well.
Yeah, is it really?
Yeah.
So with the portfolio that we got here, Perth Metro, you just mentioned down south there, so I'm guessing you got something down.
No, I just keep my finger on the pulse a little bit down there. So we,
Right.
you know, go down every now and then, and I chat to some of the agents down there.
Yeah.
So no, at the moment we're just Perth Metro, but you know, as we know, Perth Metro urban sprawl is about 160 k,
It's
so
a big
very
place.
very spread out along the coast. Of course, everyone's got the appetite for the beach, but we mostly in the northwest suburbs of Perth, but we do have properties as south as you know, Belia and Fremantle and yeah, everywhere in between then up to Quinns Rock. And then east is the Vines, so yeah, pretty
right.
much all over.
So when you're talking about them suburbs, I think Fremantle, it would work well there. Quinns Rock, beachside, nice big properties up there, so I'm guessing it would work pretty well up there. Bibra Lake's a bit of an interesting one. You wouldn't think of it as like a holiday destination. Belia, sorry.
Yeah, it's not exactly. I mean, this client actually has a few properties with us, so it still works well. It still outperforms traditional leasing, but yes, of course you do get areas that do perform better, but often the flip side of that is that the yield is sometimes comparable because you're paying more to get into a blue chip suburb. Yes, you get the long term capital growth, but cash flow only, right? You're can sometimes be better being a suburb away, you know. But of course, like being close proximity to restaurants, cafes, bars, nightlife is always handy. But pretty much everyone knows you need a car when you come into Perth, right? And it's, I think, the most isolated city in the world, so you're going to have a car. You can get around and, you know, see wider Perth as well. So yeah.
What's the best property that you've got that you manage in the way of demand and price point?
Demand and price point, yeah. Like in terms of the total like gross revenue it brings in.
Gross revenue, but also like the property itself that probably stands out more than anything, gets the most interest.
Good question. If I ask this question to a whole office, we've all got different answers, right? Some people have their babies, their favourites, you know. So, I mean, I personally like the ocean more than the river, for example. But we've got a great one on the river in Applecross that was getting crazy rents. Scarborough, we've got someone like the Esplanade and overlooking the ocean, which are really nice. So, for me, probably it's going to be Scarborough. Yeah, I like that sort of pocket, and
that's where you live as well, isn't it?
I'm Doubleview, so suburb away, I guess.
Yeah.
But about last 6-7 years been in Scarborough Doubleview area.
Yeah. So in the terms of gross revenue, what's the most popular property that you've got there then?
Gross revenue would probably be one of the largest Scarborough ones, I would say. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of a property that comes to mind.
Scarborough is a good spot as well. I mean, generally when the stepfather's been over a few times, he stayed in Scarborough. Yeah. We've got friends over at the minute staying in Scarborough. So it's kind of a place to go, isn't it? Because it's got a bit of a hub there, bit of a nightlife thing going on. Yeah,
that new obviously redevelopment that happened 3-4 years ago has been great for the area. You've got Thursday night markets, the Surf Life Saving Championships pretty recently during this year, I think in March, and things went crazy, and it's just a lot going on, and it's like a pocket or a precinct, I guess, outside of the Perth CBD, because it's a common and a bit counterintuitive thought that you need to be near the city, and it's just not the case, because you're competing with hotels, and secondly, it's pretty saturated in the city anyway, so we like to be on the fringe and around there, still within sort of 10-15 k's potentially, but along the coast is also a benefit too.
Yeah, right, okay. That's interesting. So fringe suburbs around the city and coastal are kind of like the best spots to do it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the nightlife and those other amenities that people commonly search for, but I mean, I think we're pretty sport in Perth that everywhere is pretty accessible, right? So if you're coming from overseas and you're only 20-30 k's from the city, it's like a stone's throw away, right? So, and everywhere's close to the beach, so. Yeah, but in saying that, that pocket or that fringe around the city, so you got like, say, Wembley, Subiaco, Mount Hawthorn, Subi, those places tick over pretty well. Bayswater.
Bayswater goes well.
Yeah,
right.
All suburbs really do go better than traditional leasing, right? But yeah, of course you want to optimise as much as possible. So what we usually do if the clients got a budget and they want to start looking for properties, we'll give them some guidance in the initial phase, and then we'll tell them to start sending us some cherry-picked properties, and we'll run the feasibility on those properties for them, and let them know what sort of
this is
returns
before
they
they
can get.
purchase, so
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
kind of assisting people purchasing.
Yeah, it's sort of like a pseudo buyer's agent, I guess.
Yeah.
If they really have a lot of requirements, and we do have a buyer's agent we can send them to.
Yeah.
But if it's a pretty simple one, they're ready to go, they might already have a property with us, or they want to get started, then we help them. We're getting a lot of Eastern States inquiries now too, because it's looking like good value in Perth.
Well, yeah,
starting to
dirt
pick
cheap,
up a
isn't
lot.
it? Dirt cheap compared to Sydney and
Correct.
Melbourne. Yeah.
Historically, we've only been shortly, behind the minute.
It's catching up. It's
Yeah,
moving,
now
moving
it's
fast,
catching
isn't it,
up
at
again.
the minute. What's the most obscure property where like the client's brought today and you thought, I don't know if this one's going to work, but then it's performed really well?
Ooh, yeah, there would be a few of those actually that have sort of curbed the trend. There's usually we've put it down to factors later that we might have not discovered at the beginning. So one common thing is like pets, right? So during COVID, searches for properties with pets went up 2.6 times, which is crazy. We had a handful of properties with pets, and they were getting like double the rates of others in the area, right? And some people are against that. For example, we can charge a slightly higher cleaning fee for pets, so it does make a big difference. There may be seasonal things that we hadn't discovered, or sometimes like going with like a very neutral theme is great because you're capturing a big segment. But if you go a bit more niche and unique, that's part of the reason Airbnb was created, right? Is to give that unique sense of belonging and integrating with the locals, basically. So yeah, character houses potentially that look a bit older, but have a bit of character about them and a bit of vibe. They often we think, guests might be worried about the main. It just seemingly looks tired, but it's just part of the character,
Yeah.
So sometimes those buck the trend a bit and perform well. There's some good examples in Fremantle that are like that, where you've got a bit more heritage listed type properties and character about them. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Interesting. So I'm trying to give the listeners a bit of a kind of visual in the mind of what works, what doesn't. Pets is an interesting one. So we automatically don't have pets in our HMOs unless a client comes to us and says, I'm happy to have them in. Have you had any incidents where they've had pets in the property and there's been damage to the property?
No, not really. Actually, none with pets. Like, we usually charge about $50 extra, and that covers things like, shedding and molting and potentially picking up droppings if the guest hasn't done it, and maybe slobber on sliding windows and doors, right? So, but no damage. And, if those things do happen, obviously everyone's pretty invested with the system now and the reviews, and everyone wants to keep their score good. That generally the guest will say, "Hey, look, sorry, this happened." Whether it hasn't happened for pets, but maybe their toddler drew on a wall, scribbled on a wall, like they say, give us the invoice, we'll pay for it, and we'll sort it out basically. So it's before our cleaners even discover this type of stuff.
So it's a really kind of supportive community when the tenant is leasing from the owner, and they both want to make sure that their ratings is squeaky clean.
Correct. Yeah, that's the thing about the two-way review system. It's got its cons, of course, but overall it works pretty well. It keeps everyone pretty honest, and in the early days there was definitely proportionally a lot more issues, but they've really tightened up their insurance, and part of them beefing up their air cover, which gives you $3 million worth of damage and liability cover through Airbnb before even looking at your short stay insurance policy, which is still only $1 a day, roughly, depending on the property. But it just fosters the sense of community and I guess doing the right thing, because you don't want to have your profile suspended as a guest, banned, removed, and then not be able to use your phone number, email, or name again to try, because it's all cross-reference, right? So it keeps people pretty honest. Yeah,
it's good. So you set the business up 6 years ago. What were you doing prior to that?
So traditional property management, so commercial and residential leasing and management.
So you've always been in the space in some degree.
Pretty much, yeah. Since I was 18, actually, bought my first place. So that's probably a good case study to use, and that's sort of how I dipped my toe in the water while I was still working for a local agency in Perth, and it was getting pretty dismal rent, I think, after the mining boom. I think it was 2016, 2017, and just put it on Airbnb to see how it would go, because I wasn't keen to keep having it negatively geared after 10 years. So
what was that one?
One in Wembley. So just a 2-bed townhouse, Herdsman Parades, and I think 2 special along that strip. But it's previously getting like $230 per week. and put it on Airbnb, and it was instantly 93% booked out at $110 per night.
Wow.
Since then, we've been able to double that probably as well. So huge difference.
Yeah,
So
massive.
about gross annual 60s, over 60K.
Wow.
It's probably worth 250. So we're looking 24-ish% rental yield on that. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
that's gross.
Yeah,
but net rental yields, often over 10%.
Yeah. So out of the gross rental yield, what does an investor need to consider in the way of fees? Obviously, property management fees, gas, water, electric.
Yeah, so you've got gas, water, electricity, internet as utilities, and you've got so there's distinctions over traditional leasing. That is, obviously you've got our fee, which is only slightly higher than a traditional agent, but of course we're dealing with like 100 guests per year per property versus one set and forget lease.
Constantly,
Correct. Yeah, it's a lot more moving parts. Obviously, the platform fees, if the bookings derive from the platform, then you'll need to pay those fees. However, what we usually do is scale or mark up our fee on those platforms so that if someone books on, say, Airbnb, they're paying the amount that the commission is more versus booking direct with us, they pay less. So
Right.
the way we market it usually is, save X% and book direct with us.
Yep.
Or they could come through Airbnb, because most people are going to go through Airbnb in the first instance, and then we try to generate repeat and organic bookings through repeat stays, and also relationships with insurance companies and relocation companies that send us a lot of clients as well, that generally book sometimes 2, 3, 4 months at a time.
Yeah, right. And you touched on insurance there as well. Is there a specific policy required for short stay, or are they just standard landlord's insurance?
Yeah, so a few years ago it was very expensive and a big barrier. It was many thousands, but now I think all the insurance have realised it's actually very minimal claims. We actually haven't even had a landlord insurance claim, if you can believe, in 6 years. We've got a few safety nets before we even get to that, of course, so screening a guest. But yeah, usually $1 a day is what you're paying for short stay landlord insurance, so $360-ish per year. If you have the building and contents in that, of course it'd be more, but for the actual short stay landlord insurance component of that, about $1 a day.
Awesome.
Yeah, you factor that into your rent easy.
$1 a day?
Yeah.
So 365 bucks a year?
For the actual landlord insurance component, yeah. So that usually covers like the opportunity cost of like rent default. Everything's paid up front as well on Airbnb, you have to remember too. So there's no real risk of not being paid.
Yeah.
And they handle the payments as well, Airbnb that is, so that you don't have to chase up or anything.
Yeah.
And then through our direct booking engine, of course, we charge the credit card before we provide check-in details.
Yeah, great. And you mentioned some of these safety nets a few times. Now, what are the safety nets that you've got in place to stop some of these things going wrong?
Yeah, so the first step obviously is we make sure that our properties are set up in the initial instance to show all of our house rules. Sometimes we have decibel devices which record and monitor the decibel level in the property, so if it gets above certain preset thresholds after 10 p.m. and usually till 7 a.m.
Cool. So that's a device in the house linked back to someone in your team?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
We've got a night shift person that's working till early hours of the morning that monitors that, and if it exceeds that threshold, we get a call and a message in real time. We can obviously intervene and shut it down. Yeah. Very low instances of this happening, but a few years ago it was a bit of an issue. So usually for larger properties, we suggest this, and it's very minimal cost. It's only $12 a month to run the device. We pay for the device for our clients as well. We've got a vested interest to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
CCTV as well, digital smart locks are all date and time stamped, that's the first thing, setting up the property right, and then the second thing is the screening of the guests. So on the on Airbnb or other platforms, generally they have a profile attached. Obviously, you can see not only their reviews, we've also got another piece of software which shows what reviews they leave hosts as well, because that's important. But seeing their profile, seeing their intention of their stay, obviously we send out a nice message saying thanks for your inquiry or your booking. Please let us know how many people are coming, what's your intention of the stay, looking for information. Once they give us that information, obviously we usually accept it. And safety nets would include, obviously the guest would report an issue if there was one in most cases. Our cleaners have a visual and a written checklist to follow when they go and inspect the property, so they would highlight any discrepancies or damage, report it to us, would then lodge a claim through Airbnb's resolution centre. Usually we have a very high rate of getting the funds recovered from that. You just need to submit accurate documentation.
Yep.
Reach out to the guests and show the discrepancy. They usually get a 72-hour window, I should say, beforehand to accept the claim before we get Airbnb involved. If all those steps fail, which hasn't happened before, then we would then look to short standalone insurance policy.
Yeah, interesting. Few things there that I kind of picked up, and so the sound monitor, that's pretty cool. So that's Wi-Fi connected, is it?
Yeah.
And triggers back, and you said you've got 8 people answering messages in a kind of messaging team. So one of them,
During the day shift it's like 6, and then there's 2 at night.
yeah, right. So there's that many inquiries coming through constantly. Is this from people inquiring on the properties, or is this people that are in the properties already?
Both. So it's not just servicing the existing clients, it's also keeping up our response rate. It's a really important metric that Airbnb's algorithms monitor, along with obviously the copywriting, the photos, captions, keywords that you're using, etc. But the response rate is something that's displayed on your profile. So we have a 100% response rate within an hour. We've kept that for 6 years now. But generally it's within a minute or two, and that really helps search rank. And obviously it helps our conversion rate too. So usually we're a good 150 to 200% higher, benchmarked against other national professional hosts nationally, let alone mum and dad hosts. So it makes a big difference with conversion, and we found that that's helped a lot. So having someone always available, usually multiple people, responding and converting these inquiries is really important.
Yeah.
In addition to having really clear listings and comprehensively built, so people know exactly what they're getting, so less barriers to book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about when I inquire on something, whether it's accommodation or whether I'm inquiring something on a website about something that I'm interested in purchasing. If I don't get a response there and then, I'm on to a different website. Or having that person there constantly inquiring or replying.
Attention span's so low these days, right? So you have to capture them in, right? So even when you're scrolling, you want to make sure the caption and the headline and the cover photo are, the money shots right, and then really bring them in.
And is it a partnership that you've got with Airbnb, or are you just hosting on their site?
Pretty much, yes, we are. There is a few distinctions and programs that Airbnb have launched, right? So there's an ambassador program, and also a community leader program. So I'm involved in both of those. So I was just over at a conference in June, speaking to other hosts around Australia. Myself and one other from Perth went over for that, and the ambassador program essentially is helping hosts and get up and running on the platform, giving them guidance, and essentially making sure they know how it works and holding their hand. The community leader program is more like a networking type arrangement where we have a Facebook page, the official Airbnb Facebook page, which I moderate, and hosting local catch-ups and events, and talking about press releases and updates from Airbnb, seeing where the landscape's heading in terms of regulation. That's been something that's been a topic for a while now.
Cool. So you're kind of rubbing shoulders with other people in this space as well?
Yeah, other hosts generally. They're usually mum and dad hosts. A few other companies that do it as well, and networking and catching up and seeing where things are heading. And everyone's got the similar questions usually, but it's a bit of everything really. Same as
us. So with you being in the property space previously, do you need to be a licensed property manager to manage Airbnb?
You don't, no. So it's actually pretty low barriers to entry, from a legal and permit standpoint. But obviously you don't know what you don't know, and there's so many errors that we've made from the beginning that we've really fine-tuned and ironed out those kinks over the time. So anyone can do it. I mean, look, and most people do. Mum and dads I would suggest that don't engage us if you've just got a granny flat at the back, or you're next door and you want to be pretty involved, and there's communal spaces. But if we manage entire homes, so it's end-to-end management. But no, there's no real barriers. But everyone's got a different style of doing it too. So we've learnt we've done everything, almost every conceivable way you could imagine, and tried what works, what doesn't, and obviously just taking constant feedback from guests. We look at our reviews, our public responses. We're doing that daily, making sure that we especially like when guests leave us a private review, because you usually can leave a public and a private review. So we look at our private reviews, and we try to nudge and regularly inspect our properties too, to make sure that upgrades and inspections are done to keep it ticking over. But no real regulatory or permit requirements to manage properties.
And I suppose, do you collect the money on behalf of the client and pay them, or does the Airbnb platform still do it and pays them and just pays you your management fee?
Both options are possible. For us, we collect all the income, and then we remit the payment to the client at the end of the month, minus any expenses, and it's all on a tax compliant monthly statement, and then also get an annual income and expenditure statement.
So it's always nice sending people the money that you've collected for them, isn't it? Especially when it's 2 or 3 times what they normally get.
Their favourite, exactly.
What's happening in the next 12, 24 months with Let Go then? Have you got more properties coming through? Is there a certain target that you want to hit?
We do, yeah. I mean, no exact target. We're just sort of going. We're probably doubling year on year, which is exciting in terms of properties. So we've got a lot in the pipeline. Obviously, winter, not many people are thinking about getting their property ready for short stay, but we're probably getting more inquiries we have any winter before. So yeah, building up the pipeline. So we're pretty well booked up for the next couple of months, and then that's going to get busier and busier. Yeah, it's starting to pick up steam even more. So that's probably one of the biggest bottlenecks is getting properties on board, because we are very intensive at the onboarding phase. We have the appraisal, obviously we get the estimate of returns, let them know how things work, and then we have usually 1 or 2 onboarding visits at least, and it's quite a few documents that we're filling in and
and is this do you do every property, or have you got someone in the team that does
that? Yeah,
the
team. So we've got an onboarding department, the cleaning, housekeeping department, inspections and upgrade department, and then operations and like bookings management as well. Nice. In the office, that is in Stirling. So it's pretty good. I think that's to get more properties on board. That's one of the next steps is increase the onboarding department, but just to widen that bottleneck. But yeah, there's no telling. Like in 12 months, 24 months, I think we could easily crack into to double the properties we're at now, and potentially look at expanding. We've been asked that regularly. We did try it in Mandurah, but we realised pretty quickly you sort of need to start from scratch again and get all your trades going.
Yeah, it's a distance, isn't it?
It is. The proximity is one of the hardest things, is incentivising cleaners. We had to basically source all of the new plumbers, electricians, cleaners, everything down there, linen, which is all systemised here. So at the moment there's less than 3,000 short-term rental, like entire homes in Perth. So
is that it?
Still, yeah, not many. So a lot of low-hanging fruit, I guess you could say. We might as well just focus on I guess increasing market share in Perth now.
Some people, not all of them, but some people do say that Airbnb short stay is partly to blame for the sort of rental crisis that we're in at the minute. With 3,000 properties, it's not a lot.
Drop in the ocean. As we know, there's about 25 to 30,000 housing shortage. So it's less than 10% of that. So it is a factor potentially. But what we've found as well is with clients is that obviously investors, they need to make a return. They can't negatively gear forever, right? They need to turn a profit at some point. And a lot of the clients we've taken on, we're pretty much on the last legs, really, with their properties. It's like, okay, they're going to try short sale, they're going to sell it, right? If they sell it, who are they selling it to? They're selling it to an owner-occupier, not to a tenant or an investor, right? Because it's not feasible. Yes, the rental market has picked up a lot now, and it's a little sad. It's a bit of gentrification happening. I mean, it happens all around the world and always has and always will, probably. But yes, it's probably a small factor, but the thing is, for an investment, it needs to cover the bills. That's what people have sacrificed and got themselves into a property, is to finally turn a profit and get a return on it, right? So I guess it's just an alternative option as well. And we do host a lot of people that do need respite or quick accommodation. Like we had a person at their house burnt down, and we were able to host them straight away. To get into a property and a rental would probably take them a few weeks, right?
Yeah. What's the short, like how soon can someone reach out on your platform and be in a property?
Instantly.
That quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as they pass all the checks that need to be done.
Yeah, so if it's through Airbnb, usually you need to have a verified profile too, where Airbnb will manually verify the government-issued ID, so driver's license or passport, and if they meet the criteria, so they've got good reviews and no bad reviews, then they can instantly book. So actually all of our properties on Airbnb instant book. Wow. So it's instant, and the second that happens, they get an automated message that thanks them for their booking, and it gives them the check-in instructions. All of our properties are self-check-in, whether it's a digital smart lock or a lockbox or whatever. So we have, and
they pay up front as well. So it's like they've signed up, paid, job done.
Even if it's through our direct booking engine, it's pretty much the same process. We'll ask them to send through ID as well, and through the payment processor, make sure that the card's valid and belongs rightfully to the card holder, and they book in the same process. They get the check-in instructions and away they go. So it's really convenient. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And then if let's say an investor listens to this now, they've got a property and they bring it to you, what's the turnaround time from them reaching out to you viewing the property, or someone in your team viewing the property, to getting furniture in place, to getting tenants, or to getting people renting the space? Good
question. So that can take some time, because we want to do it right. So we did previously and probably mistakenly rush that process, but it's so important, especially in the early days, to get the good reviews and start snowballing from there, right? So the first phase to get the appraisal done is usually within 1 to 2 business days. So Trish, our property manager, would arrange that, bring an estimate of returns, send a brochure about how everything works. That would probably be the first phase once they reach out. So through our website, there's a contact form. You can submit your inquiry, put your property address on there, the intended start date and the address, and we'll do a bit of research, send you through an overview so they understand what they're getting. Booking the appraisal usually within 1 or 2 days. If the property's vacant, no furniture in there basically, but it's ready to go, then of course we book in our interior designer, usually again within 1-2 business days from there. But that can be married up to once we understand the requirements in the initial phone call or email, and done at the same time. So from there, the furniture fit out and turnaround is usually 2 to 3 weeks. So we're probably in about a month now.
Yeah.
But usually we've got a bit of like leeway. Like most people reach out in advance, right? So we try to marry it up. Yeah. But from there, once the property's been fitted out and styled, then it's 1 day usually for cleaning and setup of linen, consumables. And consumables is a long list of stuff we provide as well, free of charge. And then the photography, right? So once the photography's usually takes 1 to 2 days. In the meantime, we're preparing the copywriting, the listing, making sure all the boxes are ticked, so that once we get the photos, everything's done. We just upload the photos, press publish, sync it to everything, and away it goes. Yeah, often we get bookings within a day or 2 after that.
Wow, that quick.
Yeah, often it is, yeah. So at the beginning, we're not too fussed with price. We want to get those first few reviews to make sure it starts snowballing. Then we start looking at that booking pace and start seeing how it actually gets positioned in the market and start
so
increasing.
You might start at a lower price.
Yeah, slightly lower,
See the demand and then gauge it up from there.
Yeah, because you get usually 60 days of boosted listing visibility, and Airbnb likes to give you a push at the beginning, I guess, to get you, I guess, hooked on the platform and get guests coming through. And then if you give them good stays and get good reviews, and looking for feedback in that period too. So then we start trying to optimize it really.
Yeah, fantastic. So if somebody, let's say somebody's purchasing a property, they've used your team to find it, you could probably do a lot of that legwork prior to settlement. Then as settlement, furniture just gets dropped off the day after.
Hit the ground running. Yeah.
What's it take if you're doing that? How long does it take to get the furniture delivered and put together, ready for photography? A couple of days.
If it's already been selected and everything, usually a couple of days or so. Yeah. You get a team of guys flat pack assembling everything really. But it would be nice to have it already and just delivered in the same day. But the downtime's not too much.
Been tricky at the moment, hasn't it? Especially the places like IKEA and stuff. We've struggled to get furniture packed.
Shortages, especially during COVID. Like you'll get 80% of stuff and you're having to go through all these different retailers at the end. So bit of running around. We can also help like with an in-between option, because some clients, they want to do it themselves or they want to have a bit of ownership over that field, which is also fine as long as it's matching. But then would offer like a personal shopping type arrangement where we can go out and get the stuff for you, give you digital mood boards so you can still visualize and see how everything will look, but it gives you a bit of
so essentially end-to-end service. They just need to buy the property, then you guys can jump in and take over.
Pretty much, hence the name Let Go. So we want you to relax and let us do everything. So we offer end-to-end management. It's the idea, give you a passive income, which is usually far exceeds what you could get with traditional leasing.
It's whet my appetite. I'm thinking myself, do I add one to my own portfolio? And I think
good. Happy to help.
Steve, been a pleasure catching up, mate.
Likewise.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Neil.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.